to Influencer, our series with the world's digital thought leaders, the people who are creating the trends that we are all talking about. Our Influencer segment is presented by AT&T. Check out AT&T's Samsung Infuse 4G. We'll be taking Twitter questions on our phones. Hop on your phone, get connected, and join the conversation. Now, no matter how connected or disconnected we are, there's one thing that does connect us all, and that's the pursuit of happiness. Zappos CEO Tony Hsieh has made that a recipe to his success for his employees, customer service, and in his New York Times best-selling book, Delivering Happiness. He's in our influencer seat today. Thank you, Tony, for joining us.
It's good to be here.
And you brought your happiness bus with you.
Yes, it's parked downstairs.
And people have not been on this bus.
We're taking it to brunch afterwards.
You're taking it to brunch. Okay, I'll be there.
With you.
Yes, with me. So a lot of people might ask you, all right, you're a multimillionaire CEO. How are you not happy?
Well, I guess one of the things I talk about in my book towards the end is that, so a few years ago, having nothing at all to do with Zappos, I started reading all these books and articles that were about the science of happiness. And so what's interesting about the research is that one of the consistent findings is people are actually very bad at predicting what will make them happy. Most people think, oh, once I achieve this, once I get this, once my company gets to these revenues, then I'll be happy, when the research shows it's actually not true. And look at lottery winners, for example, their happiness level a year after compared to right before they won the lottery is the same, or maybe
Were
even
you
a
in
little
that
bit
position?
lower.
Were you feeling in a low point of your life that you were trying to find out what happiness meant?
It was. I just thought it was an interesting topic because for us at Zappos, we're trying to make customers happy and trying to make employees happy. And according to the research, it's not as simple as just asking them, what can we do to make you happy? Because in most cases, people actually don't know, according to the research.
So what do you do? I mean, there's a lot of CEOs and companies out there that say they're striving for what you do. They create a cool culture, do fun things at work, but what has made you and Zappos the example for this? Why are you the go-to when people are talking about how to make culture different at the workplace between passion and profit?
Yeah, I guess for us, we formalize the definition of our culture into 10 core values. So if you do a Google search for Zappos core values, you can see what those are. And it was actually one of those things that we resisted for a long time. We didn't have it until 5 or 6 years into the company because it always felt like one of those big corporate things to do. And I think the reason we felt that way is because a lot of corporations have these things called core values or guiding principles or so on. But the problem is usually they're very lofty sounding. They kind of read like a press release that the marketing department put out. Maybe you learn about it on their website or day one of orientation, but then it just becomes this meaningless plaque on the lobby wall. And for us, we wanted to come up with committable core values. And by committable, meaning we're actually willing to hire or fire people based on them completely independent of their actual job performance.
Okay.
And
so
when
it's
you
who
use
they
that,
are as a person?
It's basically we're trying to hire people whose personal values match the corporate values. But when you use that criteria of coming up with values that you're willing to hire and fire for, independent of actual job performance, it's actually a really hard list to come up with. And so, for example, when we hire people, we do 2 sets of interviews. And the first set is kind of the standard stuff. And then the second set, our HR department does purely for values and culture fit. And they have to pass both in order to be hired.
Really interesting. Now we have a ton of Twitter questions coming in. One from @SeanWard, who asks, how much is hard work and dedication versus a project catching fire and going in big ways you can't predict or plan for part of success?
I think there's always the news headline examples of surprise runaway successes, whether it's you were talking about movies earlier and or internet ideas. And yes, everyone can possibly win the lottery, but for our perspective is really it's all about passion. And also, I think a really important part is being able to adapt and adjust depending on how things change, because nothing ever turns out the way you expect it to be, whether it's in business or in life. And there's a quote by Charles Darwin. It's something like, it's not the fastest or most intelligent of species that survives, it's the ones that's most adaptable to change. And I think the same thing is true for business.
You have the best quotes, by the way. I always inspire, connect, entertain, educate, one of my favorites. You talk about that a lot.
Yeah, that's one of our philosophies, both at Zappos and also through Twitter, and also the book is really, those are, we try to not do just straight promotional tweets. It really needs to fall in one of those 4 categories.
Will social media ever be like a phone call?
You know what? At Zappos, we actually have a thing where anytime someone uses the word social media, they owe me $1. And
Oops,
so
that means I
it's
owe
a
you a
bad
lot of
word
money.
just because I think there's so much buzz and focus on social media, and for us, it's really about, it's another way of connecting with customers and people, just like the telephone is. And you don't go around saying, oh, what's your telephone strategy, right? And so it's just that social media is this new thing that I know people like.
All right, so I got to ask you, since you're an entrepreneur and investor, LinkedIn shocked everyone with the price of its IPO. Are we overvaluing these social media companies?
Dollar. And
yes.
I have no idea. I don't know much about LinkedIn.
What about the bubble? Are we in a bubble? This is a big question amongst the tech community and even other people out there.
I guess for me, I don't pay too much attention to that. It's really just, I think it just depends on whether you have an actual business that is sustainable and scalable, independent of what the market thinks.
Yeah.
And so I don't know too much about LinkedIn's business myself, but from what I understand, they are generating revenues.
Yeah, and that's what counts. So in terms of your business, you've done a lot of things outside of Zappos. You're now revitalizing downtown Vegas. This is your latest project.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We announced about 6 months ago we're taking over Las Vegas City Hall. And
how does that happen? How does Zappos able to take over City Hall?
Well, I don't follow local politics at all, but found out randomly about 9 months ago that they were building a new city hall, and so I asked what was happening with the current one, and we've been looking for a campus for a long time so we can get everyone under one roof. We're spread over 3 buildings right now in Las Vegas. And as it turns out, this area that's the city hall is in is actually an area where most tourists don't know about. Most tourists, when they think Las Vegas, think the Strip, or if they think downtown Las Vegas, they might think the Fremont Street experience. But this is actually located in an area called Fremont East, where if you go into the bars or lounges or coffee shops there, you'd have no idea you're in Vegas. It feels more like San Francisco or in Austin. And really, it became this much bigger project where it's not just about building a new campus, but it's an opportunity for us to actually revitalize the city. And so we started doing research. There's a guy named Richard Florida who wrote about the creative class, and he researched hundreds of different cities to see why some cities are thriving and others aren't, and found that important ingredients are adding a live music scene and art scene, even things you wouldn't think about, like shorter sidewalks, and also education and so on. And so we have all these different tracks that people are interested in at Zappos just for volunteering and in partnering with the community. It's kind of like trying to do 50 startups at once in a semi-integrated way. And that game SimCity?
Yes.
So it's kind of like getting to play SimCity, but in real life. And so the tagline we came up with was from Sin City to SimCity.
Now, I'm always impressed with you because you have your book, Delivering Happiness. It became a movement, deliveringhappiness.com, and now you're bringing that to a city, which is really interesting, and I'm sure it'll move beyond that as you continue.
But, well, it's not just purely altruistic either, or just for the community, because our number one priority at Zappos is company culture, and one of the things we really believe is that if you can increase the number of serendipitous interactions amongst employees, like that's actually where the real conversations and communication happens. And so part of the campus design is about increasing the number of serendipitous interactions inside the office, but now as part of revitalizing downtown and having everything within walking distance of the office, now we can increase the number of serendipitous interactions outside the office.
Love it. Well, thank you, Tony, for being here, stopping by, and bringing us some happiness. You can follow him at Zappos. And to join the movement, as I mentioned, go to deliveringhappiness.com.